All right, welcome back. We are Arya Nagarjuna investigators. This is September 3rd, 2025, and our co-student Janet Chen has agreed to do a review for us of Chapter 10, Fire and Firewood, to get us back on track after our break. So I present to you Precious Janet Chen. Ta-da!
Thank you, Lama Sarani. So we'll start with our opening preliminaries. Bring to mind a person who's suffering that you'd like to help. We kind of already did that. We'll do it again. And we'll um, bring to mind the person who is suffering who would you like to help. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense, covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the four continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Nira Tayami. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. With the merit that we do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. May all beings, through the power that we do in sharing this class in the rest, by the power of the goodness that I do in giving in the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. By the power of the goodness I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total enlightenment for the sake of all others. All right. So today I'm presenting the chapter 10, which is Fuel and Fire, and I have the quotes to read from 10.6 and 10.7. I was sharing earlier that the last time I presented this was September 3rd, 2024. So it's been 1 year and 4 months. So I looked at this notes from before, and the comment that in Lama Christie's, the Kajik, about a specific kind of touch that even makes a third thing. Two different things come together to make a third thing. So back in time in my notes, I don't know what really happened because that's how it is. But I should not laugh. Calm down. Um, A in this Kachik, bringing in another example. The chapter is fire and fuel. The Chikik brings another example. How does a woman touch a man or a man ever touch a woman? So I was like, well, what does that mean? A man having and woman having sex, having a baby, A. B, a man and woman having hormonal attraction, which leads to hot sex, B. C, a man and woman that have a Lama student connection that leads to learning the Dharma, C. A man and woman having a spiritual relationship, D. Tim just talked about that. He said there's very high price for those kind of seeds, but to really look at relationships. And then there's E, a person who is a collection of parts and is projected upon by past deeds. This person projected upon is also projected upon others from their past deeds. So this class, I'm going to put aside A, B, C, and D. We're just going to focus on E, since if Lama Sarani wouldn't mind scrolling to I think oh, is it not here? It's not here. I gave you the wrong one. Can I send you another one? I sent you the Oh, well no, it is here. I'm on the wrong one. Okay. I'm gonna open up the right file. Bear with me. Desktop, view on fire. Okay. Scroll down. And it's not here. All right. On the second page, Lama Sarani, do you have there, right there, Mula Maka Karika for Dummies? You could scroll up a little. The page break came wrong. Yeah, there we go. So this whole text, like I'm gonna focus on E and not all of it, because evidently that's what Nagarjuna does. He just focuses on the same thing. He doesn't focus on like the whole teaching, like everything. He just wants to teach, and he wants to teach like one thing really well. So I was sharing with Lama Sarani, this text, that's not so bad, you know? It's actually not so bad because he only focuses like on one thing. So this thing is, it is things are not how we think. They're coming from our own side until purification, and we don't see it that way. But his audience is people that are purifying. So he is every chapter telling us things are not the way we think they are. But we know the punchline, but maybe we only know it intellectually. I don't know. There is no arising or production of phenomena. That's the theme. Nothing starts, nothing stays, nothing stops. Nothing stops, nothing starts, nothing stays. And this whole text is a setup for refuting the existence of a person coming from their own side. So, and it's done in debate format. There it is. It's the Mula Maria Karika for Dummies, version 1. It's like Jason Kappa, the three principal paths, but for this text. So, and you could say, I find that so hard to believe. He's got 27 chapters. Well, look at this one chapter, and perhaps I'll prove to you that this is what he's focusing on. And then and Geisha La is going to help us too, because I I know he's looking at some of these same clues, and he might even have more, but Arya Nagarjuna does not stray from his point. He just does not. So we'll go back to the top. It's fuel and fire. Now usually you look at this, right? There's a log with fire. No, no, no. They don't, the debaters don't look at it. They look at it as parts. So there's like the parts of a person, and then there's the person. But this is like the person, this image. It's not the parts of the person, it's not the logs and the fire. So, and there's oxygen too, there's other stuff. And why is this important? Because Arina Karshan is trying to disprove the parts of a person. And so he's coming from the point of view of looking at it from parts. So the Pudgalvadians, the personalists, and I put the dates in so we can kind of know. Arya Nagarjuna is 150 CE. So these are people that are kind of around his time period, the 3rd century. They are 3rd century to 10th century. They don't exist. Um, they perceive persons on the basis of skandhas, and it is like fire on the basis of fuel. And they they are not the parts of the fire are not the same as the fuel. So the fuel is not identical to the fire. They're not different. The fuel is not different from the fire. Like when you look at that picture, it's one big thing, right? And since they cannot be distinct or identical, one cannot possess one if they were distinct. So that's a little bit mixed. The fire possesses the fuel, but the fuel does not possess the fire because the fuel might come from dinosaurs or from wood. The fuel actually has its own parts that make up the fuel. It's that on the bottom there, I said that it's eternal regression. So when you look at the parts of things, you look at the atoms, you look at where things come from, you can keep going back. Oh, we're here with Lama Sarani because our past karma. Well, what happened to us before that karma? What were we doing then? So there were things that led up to that. And so you never get to the, well, you could, I guess, but since we're not omniscient, we just don't go there. We stop at the point of where we can. Um, so they don't possess each other. Fuel cannot have fire of its foundation if it's not distinct, and fire cannot have fuel of its foundation if it's not distinct. So the very second thing was they're not separate from each other. I don't know. I mean, there's that mushi mushu too, where they're both and they're not neither. I'm kind of unclear about that. Perhaps that's something to explore for to for the Mula Makia Karika for Dummies version 2. I don't know if this is Mushi or Mushu. I just know that he's addressing this because it's a debate format, and this is what the format is in debate. You're asking these questions with logic. There is no mutual dependence. The fire comes from other parts. Maybe the fuel is dependence with anticipation of the fire, which is what, according to the Wisdom Press, that Buddha Palaya said. They are also not independent. Fuel can exist without fire, but fire cannot exist without fuel. And fuel can't exist without the things that create the fuel. If the dinosaurs hadn't died, we wouldn't have the cars. We wouldn't be driving, or if we did, we wouldn't be doing it the way we are doing it. So, yes, Lama Sarani,
But how can fuel exist without the fire? Because that stuff we're calling fuel isn't fuel until it's burning.
but well, Buddha Palaya says it's anticipation of the fire. So the fire hasn't happened yet, but in your mind, you're anticipating the fire.
So we can call that thing fuel, but it isn't actually fuel.
It could be grass that's dry. It could be like wood in a drought like in Canada. But
Right,
it then we change the name to fuel because anticipation of the fire or the actual fire itself.
right.
It you
So
know,
it seems that fuel can exist without the fire. And it seems that fire can't exist without the fuel. But I think Nagarjuna would say that's what we're checking.
fire cannot exist without the fuel because it's one of the parts. I mean, you can take out the parts and that thing would still be there. I guess the fire would go out. I don't know. I mean, it's
Yeah,
this really is going to our body. If we took out our eyeballs, would we still be us? And there's other
right,
parts. But if there are no complete parts, I mean, we are a projection
right.
upon the parts. And you can take out a part, but you can't take out all the parts. And that's the definition with the Pudgala varians that
Okay,
are the skandhas. We're
okay,
perceived on the basis of the skandhas.
okay. So the Pudgalas are saying you can have fuel without fire. Because, yeah, my old worldview would be there's a pile of firewood, that's fuel,
Because
even
you're
if
in,
it never, ever, ever burns. I
yeah,
would still mistakenly call it fuel.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Yesterday, Tom was saying this is all semantics, but we put ourselves in the situation by having things exist nominally. We're gonna talk about the words If we're going to label things nominally, we're going to talk about the words.
Semantics
It's
becomes
it's a
important.
very
Yeah.
bad seed of karma with speech. And since gossip is my mental affliction, it is a pretty wicked um, seed to have to purify, you
All
know.
right.
We look at things nominally, and it is, if we say things wrong, we know it, we pay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So we're gonna go down to Wikipedia. So I wondered why? Why did they use the word Persura and not Atman? It's because there's these Pakuda variants. It's because of them. It says in Wikipedia, the Pagoda variants assert that while there is no Atman, there's a Pagoda or a person. So in this teaching, if we go up to the Sanskrit, which is above, we'll go to the text, which is right underneath the Mulia Makya Karika for Dummies, right underneath it. Yeah. So go down a little bit, and there's the text. So Wisdom Publication, God bless them, put the Sanskrit in. So I was able to copy the Sanskrit and put it there. And then there's the side-by-side text, right, for Lama Christie. And and um and somehow I did edit this and it didn't put it in. So Lama Christie's commentary is Choni Lama, The Ocean of Emptiness, correct? And then the Wisdom Publication, they use that fearless one that's ascribed to Arya Nagarjuna, but Venerable Upala has already in her presentation in um Mixed Nuts, he quotes Arya Deva. He quotes his student. Usually teachers don't quote their students, so it's already kind of misproved that that fearless isn't ascribed. But what Wisdom Text used that they used there's two texts by Chandra Kirti, and I'm reading the one that's more weird, not the straightforward one. I haven't read the straightforward one. The oh God, I can't think of the name. The Entering the Middle Way, and then they use Buddha Palaya and they use Baba Vavita. So they use those four. But the problem with the Wisdom publications is they didn't put the complete text in, they just put snippets in. So I can't check it. I can't check if they quoted it right, if they quoted the wrong Chandra Kirti book or where it was in Chandra Kirti. So I thank them for putting in the Sanskrit, and I know it, maybe it was like footnote style, like Geshe Michael does footnote style, and maybe you can't really put everything in. You have to do the best you can. But the reason I'm mentioning that, and I did put it in there, and I must have not saved the document. I closed it. Um, Most of the time when people teach, they teach off of a commentary. So I'm teaching off of a commentary too. I'm teaching off this Wisdom Publications and Lama Christie, and I didn't read the Ocean on the Sea of Emptiness, but she's teaching from there. And it makes it easier to learn, right? When you teach off a commentary, it makes it easier to learn because then you just follow right off the commentary. So
Right.
this is not so bad. You know why? Because we've got commentaries. We've got them. And we could just when we teach, we could just follow right off the commentaries. And I made the mistake of not saving when I put in who it was. Um, and this is not a criticism of Lama Sarani at all, because we know she was taught by Lama Christie, and Lama Christie at the time was using Tony Lama.
Right.
So if you look at this text, and I could read it, I can read Lama Christie's in English really quick. I could read them both really quickly. So, how does a woman touch a man or a man ever touch a woman? It is because fire is different from fuel that they can make contact. And then Wisdom Publication. Fire could touch fuel even though distinct from fuel, just as a woman touches a man and a man touches a woman. And then that's the kachik, and the reply is consider the two of fuel and fire. If each is defined by the other, then even the fact that fire is something different than fuel depends on the assertion that it interacts with fire. So she's saying that there's this third thing going on. And it was in there, and it's not in there now, that she said that there's two things that make a third thing, which is what confused me to begin with. But now I'm not confused. So the reply for Wisdom Publications, which is the same, fire being distinct from fuel would surely be able to touch fuel if fire and fuel were mutually independent. Now, I already read to you those five things. They're not mutually independent and they're not distinct. So it disproves two other things. They come, at least the fuel comes from other things and the fire comes from other things. The human being comes from other things. They are not independent in and of itself. So when you look at this text, there's perusum, perusa. So this is what they use for the word man, perusa, perusum, perusa. But usually it's atman, right? And why isn't it atman? Because Wikipedia says that the Pularitarians don't believe in atman. They believe in the person. So in this text, because Arya Nagarjuna, evidently this is his audience, he's trying to refute the the Pudgavedians. He used what they would have, but then they used for person, they used Pudgalas. Well, why didn't he use Pudgalas? Why did he use Perusum and Perusa? And then that's when I shut down right there. But I thought about this a little bit. And then Lama Sarani, if you go to that text of the screenshot of my phone, so she was saying that it's it's the dictionary of my phone. She was saying that the yeah, a little bit more, that the Madhyamakas, they look at a person from, oh, you know what? It's right there highlighted. We could look at that too. Madhyamaka, Mahayana Buddhism only mentioned in passing. Nagarjuna's work as well known. The selflessness of a person and things. So that's how middle way looks at, or the Mahayana school looks at it. They don't look at it as a person. They look at it as the selflessness of a person and things. So if you keep scrolling, Lama Sarani, to that phone, we were in class and Lama Sarani was talking about the selflessness of a person and things. And there it is again, right there. Scroll up a little bit. Oh, a little bit more. Scroll up. There, Perusa. There it is again. The selflessness of a person in Sanskrit. He uses the Mahayana person, the Purusa person. So he's trying to assert his view by saying Purusa, that it is the selflessness of the person from the Mahayana school as opposed to the, oh, my poor, the the Pudgalavarian Pud Pudgalas. So there's a clue. It's a clue. I'm so excited. There's a clue. But there's more clues coming. So I'll have to, like, right? I have to take the witness standpoint and look at my excitement with just with no story attached to it. Stop the storytelling. Yes, Lama Sarani.
So if I'm following, you're helping us understand the difference between what's meant by Pudgala and Parusha, and actually technically Atman, because those are three different words that all have something to do with the individual.
The person. Why are there all these words, and why do they use the specific words? Because Geshe Michael says these texts are pretty slim. If they use a word, it was not thought about lightly. They used it on purpose. So why
Right.
did they do that? So it's to assert their view and debate.
Yeah.
So the Pagalavadians wanted to use fuel and fire to assert their view. And then, I mean, there's a question, why would they use the middle way term in their opponent view, right? How interesting. It's the opponent view. The opponent is almost setting us up for the refutement. So it's almost like the opponent is not Pugalavadian. The opponent is a Madhyamaka person. Isn't that interesting?
Pointing out, yeah.
Yes, he's clearly an opponent because he's asking, well, what about this other example of that you use for fuel and fire? What about this other examples of person? But he didn't use Pudgalas, he used Purusha. So,
And
uh,
what's the difference? Tell me again the difference in the Pudgalian's mind between the term Pudgala as person and Purusha as person. I'm
the
not
the
understanding.
the difference is that the Pudgalas are on the basis of the skandhas, the parts. And the Madhyamakas, they look at it as the selflessness of the person and the selflessness of phenomena. So they look at it as that you're your parts are coming from your side. So there is a selflessness of the phenomena and the person. And Michael wondered why did they split it up? I mean, it is possible that if you say to a person that you're empty in nature, that the immorality, if that immoral will kick in, and then they'll have even more bad seeds. So you can't do that for somebody that's not prepared. It's just going to create more bad seeds for them. So, we're told as teachers of emptiness, we're know-it-alls and that we're arrogant. But I say we don't know it all because we're not omniscient. And if we were omniscient, wouldn't we know it all anyway? Right? So until we're omniscient, we're not a know-it-all. We're just trying. And it's okay to try and make mistakes, but then, it could have some bad consequences because of the gossip, right? This whole social media thing. My video gets sent viral, and Janet said, and therefore she's misrepresenting Geshe Michael and ACI. I'm sure someday that will happen if it hasn't already. So, this is the world that we live in. It's a dangerous place, Lama Sarani. This world is a dangerous place.
That's why we're studying Arya Nagarjuna, so we can stop creating a dangerous place.
So where I got this, the difference between the Mahayana and the Pudagavarians, if you scroll up, it's there. I highlighted that how they look at a person and how the
Did
how
I
the
go too far?
how they I got this off of the Abhidharma Kosha, which Stanley is translating. So we'll have Stanley's, but it was easier for me to get it off online than to go to Stanley's. Do you know what
Oh,
I'm saying? Because I
yeah.
had to get this done. Um, so go to the Abhidharma Kosha, and then I pulled out that section on persons. You have to go down to Abhidharma Kosha. This is what
Oh, sorry.
So that's Abhidharma Kosha, and I put a link to where I got it from. And then I highlighted where it's the person. Where you see the yellow is where, if you keep scrolling, yeah, that's them. And then and the person is not separate from the five skandhas. And if you keep scrolling, it'll describe the fuel and the fire. Scroll up just a little bit to the fuel and the fire. Oh, down, scroll down, sorry. Um,
Wait, I'm reading.
okay. Okay, I think it's B if you keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Right there. Fuel, fire and fuel. The Pudgalavadians introduced the notion that persons are conceived on the basis of skandhas, as fire conceived in a reliance upon fuel without being other than the same as the existence of fuel. So that's a good clue too, that he's really addressing these people. That's why he picked fuel and fire. It's because these people use this as an example. So what do? You make a wrong statement during a debate with something that someone understands. So they understand using fuel and fire as an example. Therefore, Arya Nagarjuna is like, okay, we'll talk about fuel and fire then, about if they're distinct or if they're independent or dependent. We'll have a whole conversation about that, and I'll rip it all apart, and then we'll move on to the next chapter.
Yeah.
So see, this text is not so hard. He's debating really, straightforward that, a person is made up of parts and you think that it's like fire and fuel. Well, let's go there to fire and fuel. Let's have a conversation about that.
Right. Nice. So do you think the Pudgalians like buy his argument by the end of the chapter?
How do I feel about the debate?
Yeah.
Let's see if I put that in here. Um, I think I did. I think it's at the top. The the I'll read what I put in my notes here. A person is like a pot and a clay, a cloth and threads, a car and car parts. A person made of parts projects upon another. The other appears to be dependent on the qualities of the projection towards it. But this other is a changing thing, moment to moment, plus the projection. People can see the other as real enough. It's real enough to have the projection. People tend not to see changes. We're just going to keep that projection going because, it just conserves energy. And man, I've had a hard day. I got to conserve my energy. So I got to just keep this projection. Fuel and fire appear to be dependent on each other, but they are not. Fuel is made up of its own parts, the eternal regression. Now, are we also the eternal regression or laziness? But there it is. There's his thing where he went through not identical, not distinct, not possessing, and not having a foundation within each other because they're not extinct. And then I wasn't sure about not, there can't be both. I'm not sure about neither, the Mushu Mushu. And maybe this is, I can't believe it would be separate from this because this is a debate. So, and I do the best I can. I'm not a, I would say chapter ACI 13 is not one of my strong points.
Not your fave.
So I don't know if that answers your question that at the end, he says that yes, people are projecting, that's a little bit different than just the parts of the fuel and fire. But in a little bit, we're projecting on that fuel and fire because if you make that statement that maybe fuel is in dependence with anticipating the fire, right? That it never burns in your lifetime, but maybe it burns after you pass away. You don't have it, but you anticipate there'll be a fire. The whole planet's on fire, right? Maybe. But that's a mental projection there too. Anticipation is a type of projection.
Right. Right. Right.
It's into the future. The anticipation's into the future. So we have the lack of memory of the past, we have the anticipation to the future, and then we have looking at the present moment. And even the present moment, it's a moving target. That present moment's a moving target. Can we keep up with it? Are we omniscient enough to keep up with it? Maybe on our best days we are, but certainly not ongoing.
Yeah.
That's not what's going on here. I remember I took uh, a THC gummy by mistake, and that's a whole different karma. Why would I do that? But I felt like my brain was in two parts, that there was the witness part and then the thinking part, and there was two parts of my brain that were going on at the same time. And I was like looking at these audio and visual hallucinations and then judging how I had just made a horrible mistake that was going to create 4 suffering hours for myself. And after those 4 hours, I took a 7 hour nap. Man, I was really tired. But our brains are not geared to having multiple parts firing at the same time and observing. I mean, it's just not what's going on. And if it is, it's just for me, a short period of time that that happens. And maybe I'm misunderstanding THC with what omniscience really is. And I will say that too, that there's a whole misunderstanding about emptiness that's going on in here. And by
Yeah.
my saying these stories, I just told a story. I just like projected and I did a wrong thing. Perfect example. This TH story
Um,
was a story. Why did I do that story? What is wrong with me?
no, but you are trying to make a point to us.
I guess, but you
We
also
have
told
to
me to
use
take the
stories.
you said to take the witness standpoint too. You did tell
Right,
us that.
right, right.
I put at the end the which you don't need to go to. I put the Precious Garland by Arya Nagarjuna verses 148 to 170 was which is the the woman hating section of the famous woman hating section of Precious Garland. It does not have the Sanskrit. It does not have the Sanskrit. I want to see if the word he uses for woman is the same word that he uses here. That would help us with a clue. But you know what? Geshe Michael has the Sanskrit. He just said on Monday he has the Sanskrit. So when he teaches it, I will see if the word that he uses, that Arya Nagarja uses for woman, is satari, swatari.
Mhm.
The woman is samprapnoti and um samprapnoti. Yeah. I thought there was striyam is also. So this is a potential other clue with the Sanskrit. If he put Arya Nagarjuna also wrote this text. So if he uses some of the same words for woman and man, I don't know if he uses Purusa for man. It'll be interesting. Then that's a clue that he's kind of trying to teach this man and woman, this projecting of parts. This teaching is to a man, to a king. I wasn't going to talk about it, so I want Geshe Michael to do it because he has the Sanskrit, but it's to a man. So, Ziki Rinpoche was the man who taught it this summer and the last summer at Deer Park. And he taught this part this summer, and he had to say over and over again, Arya Nagarjuna is not disparaging woman. Don't get him wrong. Arya Nagarjuna is not disparaging woman. He is not disparaging women. And I'm like, wow, you have said that like over 3 times. That's beyond the amount of times you read something. So this audience, this audience was to a king, and the king was a man. And my classmates at Deer Park said back in 150 AD, it was all monks. They didn't have laypersons studying. They didn't have women studying. This teaching was specifically for men. So it was men's desire for women, the projection on women that that Arya Nagarjuna was debating. And I felt offended when I read it because I'm not the audience. But, he was trying to say how men, they want women because they're clean. And so he goes through this whole description about how women are clean. And I immediately went into how am I unclean, but a man isn't unclean, which is not the point he was trying to make. He's not trying to make that point. He's trying to make the point that a man thinks a woman is clean and therefore he has desire for her, but she's really got saliva and she's got like, scum between her teeth. She's got dental issues. She's got snot in her nose. She's got tears. She's got excretions. He was trying to make the point to a man how you are projecting that a woman is clean, but she's really not unclean. And if you look at how things really are, you wouldn't desire things at all. You wouldn't, if you looked at how things really are, you would not put those projections on there. So that's That's coming from Geshe Michael with the Sanskrit, hopefully. And then we can look at the words for woman too and see if we could tie this text up a little bit better. That Arya Nagarjuna was looking at undoing a person of parts and then the projection on the parts. And then he addressed the man and the woman specifically with the projecting of how men want a clean woman. But the reality is that she has snot in her nose.
Yeah. And so does he. Here's
He didn't.
165. By the way, King, you're not so clean yourself.
It's your own body. Yeah.
But
So
it
that's
seems like in that chapter, Fire and Firewood, Nagarjuna was helping us recognize the conundrum about how you really can't have one without the other. That they, right, they happen together. And then the critique goes, no, you have to have two separate things for contact to be made in order to have a third thing. You know,
but then there
man and there's a woman, and then they make contact. And that's just like fuel and firewood, and then you have fire.
the fire cannot be distinct from the fuel. The fire happens in the fuels. It's like that picture, you know, the burning logs.
Right,
The fuel can be distinct from the fire, but then if you have the anticipation of the fire in the future, then the fire is there with the fuel, and the fuel cannot be distinct without the parts that make up the fuel, the dinosaurs that died that made the gasoline. It's if you look at it more deeply, they're not any of these things
right,
technically. Look at it more
right,
deeply. So
right,
unless it's absolute, Arya Nagarjuna said, unless it's absolute, it cannot. You can't say it's distinct sometimes, but not distinct other times, and you
right,
can't say it's identical sometimes, but not identical other times. The
right,
Arya Nagarjuna said that just adds confusion. If you're going to make a statement, it needs to be absolute to be clear with the language. And
right.
our language is not clear, but yet
Yeah,
we speak with confidence. I do, as if it's clear, and it's such a huge problem
right,
that we speak with confidence. And yet, if you don't speak with confidence, people say, "Well, how can we trust you? You're so wishy-washy. You know, you're giving me a headache. You're so wishy-washy." So we speak with confidence. It's almost like caregiving. Like when you're a caregiver, you can do things for the ease of the caregiver, you know, so that she has an easier job, but it's not necessarily the best for the client. But if you do everything for the best of the client, you might not get everything done. So this use of language we have is for our our convenience to make it easy for us.
yeah,
But then we sacrifice that it's any accuracy or any deeper understanding. And it's all just so are we working? I mean, as a caregiver, if you work double shifts and you work long hours, you want to conserve your time so you can make it through working over 40 hours a week. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe we're just working too hard and we need to go and retreat and like, you know, take a chill out and like just like look at things more carefully and communicate more carefully. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Because Nagarjuna is trying to get us to a recognition of experience in that's actually beyond the ability of words to convey.
It's not about words. In fact, the words make it worse.
Right,
You experience the yogic perception of emptiness, you won't say, "Did I?" Because that's words. You've
right,
just
right.
experienced the yogic perception of emptiness.
And you won't say I did either,
No,
because it's just
because it's
words.
words too. I kind of was like a little upset that when I was at that Precious Garland class that I wasn't the audience. But my classmate said, but lay people eventually did become audiences, and there's sutras written for them. And she gave me one, which I read, I partially read, I should reread. She said there are teachings for lay people, there are teachings for monks, lay people, nuns. She said, but this precious garland just happened to be for a king who was a man. there are lots and lots of teachings. This is just one, and don't feel offended it wasn't for you. There's one for you someplace out there.
Yeah, that's nice. The one for you. Nice.
One for lay people. Just here, just read it. It's kind of funny. Just read the one. I wish I could remember the name. She told me what it was, and I have it like, bookmarked to read. There's a lot of good clues out there, I would say. When I started on April 3rd, 2024, I didn't know what to make, and I was making stuff up based on my past experience because my Ney Lama's a man, and I was like, is this a personal message that is between a man and a woman and me and my Ney Lama? But it really isn't. This is much more straightforward. This is much more like who's the audience he's regarding? It's the Pudgalavadians. That's the audience. It's very clear. What's the point he's trying to make? The point he's trying to make is that the skandhas and then the projections um, are moving targets, and we're not moving with the targets. We just put the projection out there, and then we don't update it as the moments go on, and that these identical distinct that the Pugavadians make, that if they're not distinct, they can't hold each other too. That none of this makes any sense in terms of like what he feels is the Mahayana middle way point of view, which he's trying to say um is what he believes um is is the response to these people making these wrong statements. So he's looking at wrong statements and he's trying to show his true statement. And why would they use Pusara? I mean, I'll put this out too because I looked at that in Wikipedia on April 3rd when we first started, and I sent the email to you. But Pusara is the cosmic man. His parts were all cut up, and he made all of life in the universe. So that's why they use Pusara, because he's the parts that make up the whole universe. And so he is like the person, the parts that make up the projection that we're putting on. They like to use that image because Pusara was the whole world of a man that was cut up into parts, and then we make all of the world upon it. It wasn't the cosmic man literally. It was a person cut up into parts, and how we like to project on that. Or we have great joy projecting on that. And perhaps we should take the witness standpoint and not have great joy or horror, but just observe and stop projecting the story.
We could, we
It's
would.
easier said than done, I guess, Arya Nagarjuna.
For sure.
Despite the fact that, Mulia Makakarika for Dummies version 1, he's setting us to refute a person coming from its own side. So he's going to refute the self, which is chapter 18. There's 27 or 26 chapters. Even after he refutes the self, he keeps going.
There's more to refute.
So
Because
that
our critique goes, yeah, but da 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 da.
karma. But there's
Right.
karma, isn't it?
What about karma? There has to be a me that carries the karma. Come on, Nagarjuna. There can't
Isn't
be a
it,
no me.
isn't it time? It's because we perceive time. If what about this? If we didn't perceive time, we wouldn't have these misunderstandings of the past, the present moment, and then anticipating of the future, right? Right? It's time. It's all time's fault.
And we only go there because when we hear there's no self, we go off that cliff of no self at all. If we went to the middle way when we heard no self, we wouldn't ask those questions. It would be like, oh, that explains karma. Oh, that explains time. Oh, that explains, right? And there'd be no text.
I didn't go back and watch Gibson's recording from Monday, but I think that will help us too. I don't remember what his book was on the author, but I would put it into Mula Maria Mula Maria Makakarika for Dummies version 2. I would probably put Gibson's, that formula, the A minus B equals C.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the self isn't the inherent emptiness of the self. It's not C, the inherent emptiness of self. It's A minus B. It's that collection of parts minus the projection you get the C if you take out the projection. That's what I think Gibson's class was, but
That's
I
mind
need
only
to
school
I
level,
need
which
yeah,
helps.
I need to cross check that. I need to I need to review that and get it right, that it is mind only school and it is a formula and this is what they're saying. Um, because if that's the case, then then if we are dependent on all these things, we're dependent on the parts, dependent on the other, the self, the interaction, the projection, then that school is probably saying that you have to take out the projection or the interaction, the quality of the interaction. But that's why I need to go back to Gibson's book and just look at what they did on Monday.
Yeah,
Um, because that would help us too, that there are all these things going on. There's the skandhas, and then there's this in the text it said there's this the Pudgalavarian said there's this unknown thing, and then the mind only school would say there's the seeds that are creating our projections. How easy is it to take away the seed, right? How easy is it to take, maybe they don't mean our projection, they mean our seed that's causing the movement of the mind. So how can we stop the movement of the mind? How can we stop that? Maybe that's what they mean. But I'm just wondering here because I didn't go back and review that
yeah,
Gibson talk. I don't know if it's the seed, the movement of the mind, and the movement of the mind would be the projection at that point.
right, right. Yeah, the goal is not to stop the mind. You can't do that. There's no mind to stop. What we mean by mind is this movement of awareness happening. We can conceptually say, what if you didn't have that? What would be there? And we
So
get
that's
a
what,
glimpse of an absence, but it would
yeah,
be a non-existence, not an absence. And
but
we know
Geshe
that we don't
Michael
do
said
that.
that that's how he looks at emptiness. It's the non of something. So I'm just not
Yeah,
able to say what it's the non of because I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
catch that in the class. But he
yeah.
said emptiness is not inherent in emptiness. It is the negation of something.
Right, right. You have to have an appearance to be empty, to be the appearance that's there. Emptiness isn't just a raw unness of everything that makes it able that things can appear. There has to be an appearance that is empty, is how I interpret what he was saying, to help people from the misunderstanding that emptiness is like the ultimate state of all existence. And then out of it comes stuff. And I do still hear that, in people's questions.
If we are seeing someone with emptiness, then we are seeing someone. And if we're seeing someone, then they're real enough. And if they're real enough, we're still projecting on them. So this is getting to, if things are real enough, how can we deal with the real enough situation? Because if there were truly emptiness, we just wouldn't see that anymore. We would see the situation as it is, but we're seeing them as this separate object from, it's real enough that we're doing this. It's going to be real enough for a
Right.
while.
Separate from our seeds ripening, the appearance as it is real.
I mean, I
We're
guess
at
on the
break time. We're at break time. Let's take a little break and then come back, shall we? Well done, Janet.
it's not so hard.
Yay. I love
I
hearing you say that.
the book's not so hard. Maybe seeing the yogic perception of an emptiness is hard. But so far, this isn't so bad.
Yay. Inexplicable. That's a really interesting word, isn't it? The Bulgarians say that, where is it?
There's an inexplicable projection or something, but Vasubandhu disputes that.
But what if we interpret inexplicable as being the empty nature of that which is explicable?
The other way to go is it's the movement of the mind and that mental afflictions.
Yeah,
Well, Stanley will get to this.
yeah. Way to go, Stanley.
We have much to look forward to. And then that fuel and fire section, with Stanley, Geshe Michael will tie it together. I'm pretty sure he's already read it. That's why he gave it to Stanley.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Are we back from our break? What else do we need to know here?
I mean, I didn't get into debate format and, all this, the different points of view that they take. There's like the different points that they have. There's A, B, C, and D. And if A is like D, B, or B is like A, or A is within B. Because Tom said it made her head hurt.
Right.
But there's that aspect too of the points that Arya Nagarjuna is trying to prove when he does this. And it's going to come up again and again in each chapter. So I think at some point we're going to have to address our heads being hurt and just be really firm on what points. And is it like the opening sequence where you're not A, you're not B, you're not both, and you're not neither? Is that what he's doing? So that would be Mushum, right? So that's Mushi. It's the four.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm very weak in all that. So maybe for Mula Maria Maka Karika for Dummies version 2, I can distill what Arya Nagarjuna is trying to do in its debate format. All I know is he's starting with the wrong statement. That I get, and I'm down with wrong statements because I do it all the time. But beyond that, like getting past that to the right statement,
Yeah.
I have some work to do on that to get there.
Well, dedicate today's speech to a major shift in your recognizing your ability to speak accurately. Yay.
Well, thank you, Masarani. I don't know if there's anything else really, other than to tell people this so far this isn't so bad. Yeah, chapter 10 kind of gets kind of squirrely, but I kind of got through it with the help of cross-referencing and with the help of mixed nuts and the help of you when you talked about terms in your class. And in my eyes, everything's okay. This isn't so bad. There's lots of clues here. It's not like there was like a killing and they can't figure out who did it like 20 years later. No, there's plenty of clues. We're okay.
Good, good. May I go back to the chapter 10 translation? And let's pick up from where you took us at 6 and 7. And let's read the rest of the chapter together since we've got 40 minutes yet.
Yeah, I didn't read the beginning either. I just did 6 and 7, so you could go right to the beginning and go
Okay.
through the whole thing, if
All
that
right,
makes.
let's do it. Let me
And
see
then
if
rather than gloss over that they're not identical or not distinct, maybe when we read it, we can see how he's approaching identical distinct. Identical, distinct, not possessing each other, and having one as a foundation and having the other as a foundation.
Right. This is you. Yeah, there it is. Move us. So wait a minute. What was chapter 9?
The thing that came before?
Right.
No, that's chapter 11. No, it is chapter
No.
9, the thing that came before. Sorry.
Right. Right. Because he was pointing out that there can't be a thing that came before. Right? You can't ever find it. There's only the now, 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 now. And then our mind goes, no, but, right? Because he's sneakily addressing our belief in the me that exists independently of the what's happening to me. Okay? And we're looking for that me in Mahamudra class, right? It's the same me. So we go, yeah, chapter 9. And then at the end, it's like, no, there is a me there first. And he says, well, no, it's like fire and fuel. Right? So that's how we got here. So let's start. Elsie's at the top of my screen.
Yay! 10.1. If the firewood was the fire, doer and deed would be the same. If fire was separated from its fuel, it could happen without the fuel.
Yeah, if entities are separate, they're separate. And they do what they do without the other. Joanna.
10.2. It would be pointless to light this fire since it doesn't come from a cause. It would just stay there, always burning, and then it couldn't ever burn.
So it's not independent.
Right. Can't be independent. It can't be independent and be fire that's burning. Three, Janet.
Since it didn't depend on anything else, how could it? It would happen without a cause. There's just no cause. And if it's already burning, how absurd to try and light it.
Elsie.
Suppose you were to think to yourself, what's burning is the firewood. If indeed this is simply the case, what makes the firewood burn? It would definitely have to be the fire.
Right. Joanna.
10.5. Since there are two separate things, they couldn't ever touch, and if there is no contact, it couldn't ever burn. If it never burned, it couldn't ever die, and if it never died, it would stay fixed like that forever.
An unchanging thing.
Janet.
And then our Mahayana Kachik, how does a woman touch a man or a man ever touch a woman, king? Because it's the fire that's different from the fuel that they can make contact.
So it's refuting what Nagarjuna has said so far. He's saying it's absurd to say fire and firewood are two separate things that come together and make fire. That's absurd. And they go, well, no, it's not, because a man touches a woman and a woman touches a man. Right? It's the same thing as fire and firewood. Here's the wood, here's the fire. Fuel, fire. Wait. So what does he say? Elsie.
And 7. Consider the two of fire and fuel. If each is defined by the other, then even the fact that fire is something different than its fuel depends on the assertion that it interacts with the fuel.
That's your anticipation factor. Fuel can be said to be fuel because we anticipate that it could burn in the future, and that makes it fuel now. Nagarjuna is going to say not actually, but Kachik has said it is so true that fire and fuel are separate, because it is so true that man and woman are separate and they make contact. So it is true that two separate entities can make contact because I do it. Is that proof that it's happening just because we experience it? There'd be a direct experience, wouldn't it? Aren't we saying direct experiences is what makes something real?
It gets squirrely way in the past and way in the future. And then if you try to find the present moment, it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. If fire and fuel define each other, then even the fact that fire is different than fuel depends on the assertion that it interacts with fuel. So even the assertion that they're two separate things is based on some kind of understanding or belief that in order to be either one, they have to interact with each other. We're saying the fact that they interact with each other is what proves that they are independent identity or entities. He's saying the fact that they interact with each other is proof that they are not independent identities. We're using the same argument to show different conclusions. That's a clue. Let's go on.
I mean, sometimes I think about my life, like I wanted Pam to not have skin conditions, so I insisted my coworkers clean her. But I don't know what caused that skin condition, and I don't know if there's or I don't know what's going on. I don't know. My skin is different than her skin. They're just way with biological things like funguses, viruses. They're just microbiology science is complicated. You got water, you got the air, you got the person, you got the genetics, and you've got these funguses and bacteria that are now supposedly resistant to things. There are too many variables to know. So therefore, me insisting my coworker clean her was not true. And it's like anticipating the fire. I can anticipate the fire, but it's all in my head that it's anticipating the fire. I don't know what's going to happen with that fuel.
Right. Right. I forget where we were. Janet, give us 10.8, please.
So fire is something dependent on fuel, and fuel is that which depends on fire. If fire and fuel depend on each other, which one of them came first? He's back to this chicken and the egg thing again, the causes. And he wants us to go into that infinite regression. What came first? Well, you had to grow the wood and dry it out to make the fuel, but then what's in the molecules of that? He keeps going back to that, and then you can't find the smallest part of it.
Right. When you go looking for the thing that gets the label, you can't find it. But you never find nothing. It's exhausting. And you finally go, oh, I don't need to do that. And then you rest in that conclusion and it's fleeting, and then my mind starts up again. Shut up in there. Elsie, 10.9.
10.9. If fire was something dependent on fuel, it would have to be there alongside the fire. And you'll have fuel that's being burned before there was ever a fire. What if we anticipate that thing is a fuel, and then we try to light it up, but it never lights it?
Right.
It's still wood, but it's just that it never got lighted because probably it was too damp. So it can't be fuel then. Could it?
Right. No. But just by calling it fuel means it has to be burning. So you'd have burning fuel even before you've lit the fire. That's ridiculous.
It's in your
Right?
head.
Life is not like that.
It's anticipation of burning.
Right. But just because I anticipate something doesn't mean it's ever going to happen. Joanna.
If any dependent thing needed the depender to be there in order for it to depend on it, but the depender also needed it, what could ever depend on what?
It's a riddle, right? Our conceptualizing goes. Mine does. Seems like you have to start somewhere. But in the process of seeds ripening, planting, can you say this seed is done and then there's a pause before the next one comes out? No. It's like they're constantly overlapping, aren't they? I'll tell you a story. Do you remember the old days when a slide projector, you'd have your slide and you had to put it in and push it across? And then you'd take this one out and put it and push it across. And even when they became automatic, there still was one slide at a time. And then in 2002 or something like that, we had already moved to Diamond Mountain. I had gone to Wilcox for a program by the Sky Island Alliance, the ecological community for the Chiricahua Mountains. And they were giving a program about some kind of conservation project they were doing. And the program hadn't started yet, but their huge big screen was running these beautiful photographs of the area. And I was so astonished watching it because it's the first time I had seen this slideshow where it just morphed from one to the next. You know how they do now? They just go. And there's not this one, and then this one, and then this one. And, you know, everybody in the audience was just watching the thing. And I was going, because I'd never seen that before. And I couldn't figure out how it was working. And now that I'm looking back, it was like this metaphor of my transition from one seed, another seed, another seed, another seed, to seeds. So even our conceptuality of a one seed at a time, 65 per instant, is still messed up. Useful, but messed up. And this verse like takes me there. It's like the projection doesn't even depend upon a seed. And the seed doesn't depend upon the projection. It's all happening. I love that idea of we're verbs, not nouns. 10-11. Janet.
Say a thing occurs in dependence. If that thing is absent, how does it depend? But you say it already exists. It wouldn't need anything to depend on.
Yeah, so to even say a thing exists in dependence assumes there's a thing that exists before the dependence happens. Right? Language just fails. Elsie.
10.12. It can't be the fire depends upon fuel, but equally impossible is that fire does not depend on fuel. It can't be that fuel depends on fire, but equally impossible is that fuel does not depend on fire.
Joanna.
10.13. Fire can't come from any other, and fuel does not have any fire. The rest about fuel is just the same as what we talked about before with going or not going by walking.
Remember that? Janet.
The fuel itself is not the fire, but the fire can't come from anything else. The fire does not have any fuel, but if it doesn't have fuel, it can't exist.
Elsie.
10.15. This fire and fuel explains itself, the self in every stage of life, faces and cloth and everything else that goes along with them.
Joanna.
10.16. So never think that anyone who tells you things or people are either separate or together could understand what they are saying. This completes the 10th chapter entitled An Analysis of Fire and its Fuel.
A pretty important chapter. If we're understanding this verse, this fire and fuel explain it all. The self in every stage of life, vases, cloth, and everything else, everything that goes along with them. So ours, me and our parts, we had it in the other evening's class. We can divide our world into selves, persons, and things. And then when you dive into that further, technically, the idea of a person and their parts is what person and things means. And so again, it's a clue to expanding our identity of self from, instead of stopping here, to including every experience we have. And so he's still leaving this distinction. There's me and there's other. And our me other relationship with everything about ourselves and about our outer world is the same as this relationship between fire and fuel. They're not distinct and they're not distinct. They depend upon each other, but you can't ever establish when they are actually doing so. They are not separate things that come together, but they are not one and the same thing either. If we go to the punchline, how would we describe the relationship between fire and fuel?
It's coming from our past actions.
Right. Ripening projections forced by our past deeds. For there to be fire and fuel, and the idea of fire and the fuel, and some interaction between them that makes the fuel light into fire. The whole way it works in our worldly convention is all ripening results of past deeds, projections happening. Is your you outside that projection witnessing it? Or is your you a part of it? Is what's ripening firewood burning in the fireplace? Or is what's ripening me experiencing firewood burning in the fireplace? Pleasure, warmth, pleasure, nice, I like. Let's keep it going. You know, different seeds, but similar idea. If me ripening, me experiencing house on fire, hot, yikes, danger, terrible, right? Similar seed, different outcome. But ripening, making there be fire and fuel. Appearing separately because we misunderstand. Do you think an Arya experiences fire burning a log? Of course they do.
They don't, yeah, they
What
do,
about
but I
Arhat?
don't believe it.
Yeah, they don't believe it's happening the way it looks like. What about Arhat? How do you figure an Arhat experiences?
You mean someone in the form realm? Or
Oh, someone still nirvana with remainder. So they still have a physical body. They're still living in their house. They're free of mental afflictions. That I interpret a nirvana-sized being as someone who's somehow aware of seeds ripening, happening as their reality. You know, I don't know if they're seeing the silver seed open constantly, but they're in this experience of projections, and it's real. It's very real. So imagine being Arhat experiencing the firewood burning in the fireplace and the pleasure.
But they haven't seen emptiness directly, right?
Oh, to get to nirvana, they sure have. They're not
You
seeing
sure
it
have?
directly now. You can't reach nirvana without seeing emptiness directly. What if you are keenly aware that every instant of your experience is projections happening, me experiencing that, me experiencing that, me experiencing that?
Well, they are not deceived by it anymore. I mean, like they don't see it directly in the ultimate way, but they know the true reality, the ultimate reality, and they are aware that what they perceive. So it's similar to the Arya then.
Yeah, certainly beyond Arya. I mean, they're aware that their own past behavior has created it. What would that feel like? Wow. Like, wow, cool. I made that. I made that. I made that. But even that word is wrong because the I refers to this I, and this I didn't make it. Some past I made it.
But don't there, so Arya Nagarjuna is there's no arising or production of phenomena. But the other way to go to get there is this whole place is like a dream. That
Yeah.
they regard everything as a dream, but it's real enough, a real enough dream, but it's still a dream. It is real enough, but it is a dream. It feels really real, but it is a dream. It is
In what way? In
an
what way is
illusion.
it a dream?
Like it's a magic show. That's the other way they say it, that it
Right.
appears like the airplane is levitating, but if you were the magician, you'd know how it levitated.
Right. And how is it that
And
it
we don't
levitates?
know, therefore, we are held to our obscurations at this
Yeah.
point.
Exactly. Exactly.
But then Arya Nagarjuna said there's just no cause. There's no arising nor production. That's the other way to get into it. That's the way he's
He's not saying no cause at all. He's saying none of your worldly causes work.
coming from
No
its own
worldly
side.
causes.
Yeah. It's the yelling boss because he's angry. He had a bad day.
Right. Right. Poor guy. Right.
Right. But I didn't do anything bad to someone. I didn't yell at somebody in order to get yelled at. No, no.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And it's that very statement that keeps us having more chapters in Nagarjuna's book. Because if at each chapter we got to the conclusion, oh, it it's all the way I'm being forced to perceive. It's all my projection, including me is my projection. If we got it from the first chapter, there wouldn't be any more book. But we do what Janet just said. No, the poor guy, he's having a bad day. That's why he yelled at me. It's really unpleasant. It has nothing to do with me yelling at somebody in the past. And does it even occur to us to think that when we're in the midst of being yelled at? You know, I have to admit, even still, it's not until sometime later and I'm chewing on what just happened that it's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. You know, that it kicks in.
I mean, if it's not important, if it's not mission critical to just say it's coming from your own side, why don't we just do it? Like I'm supported by Doug. If I don't have hours and I don't have a job, why not just look at all this as unimportant? Because technically it is unimportant. It's like this survival drive that makes it seem like it's important. But I mean, if you look at the survival drive, if it's really existing, is it really important? I tend to not want to question that right now, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I'm in an okay place for now, and I'm not questioning while I'm in survival whether I need to be in survival. It's a little bit easier to do that when you're in a safe place, you know?
right, right, right. Which is why the first perfection is the perfection of giving, and the first level is perfection of giving material things to other people. And the second one is to give protection. Because in order for people to be in a place where they can turn their minds to the investigation of where things come from, we need to be fed and safe. So we want to make those seeds by just trying to help other people be fed and safe. Can we do it for them? No, not ultimately. Can we try? Absolutely. And that's what makes it happen, is the trying. Yeah, it's all in this one chapter, all in this one verse. Nice. So what does Arkachik do?
He says, but
But wait. Do I have chapter 11? Let me see. No, I don't.
it says chapter 11, an analysis of beginnings and endings.
Ah,
Read-
do you see how it goes there?
Hmm.
Do you remember Janet's triangle?
The fuel, the firewood.
Fire and the oxygen.
And the oxygen, that it takes all of those. You don't have three things that come together. You have vit, or you have vit, or vit. And he's saying, and that's true about every experience. We could call it self, other, and interaction between, couldn't we? The three spheres.
Mhm.
It's not this one, then that one, then that one. It's vit, vit, vit. I like this. So we followed the firewood, fire, okay, I can't find the moment. One depends upon the other. You just have it or you don't have it. Yeah, but it wasn't burning and now it is burning.
So it's
There
fire.
must have been a beginning to the burning, right? You take a piece of incense, you light the little match, you go like this, and you have to go, right? To get it to light. It takes a little while. And then it lights and the flame goes out, and then you have your incense stick. There has to be a beginning. And then if there's a beginning, there's a middle. And if there's a middle, there's an end. And, you know, we'll see where he's going with that. In the vit, 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 how would we explain there being not fire and then fire? Doesn't there have to be a vit and then a lighting the fire and then a fire burning and then a burning out? Doesn't there have to be
A link.
separate instances of different things happening? How can it be firewood burning happening, firewood burning happening, firewood burning happening, and it be different? Like, check your mind. Doesn't your mind go, well, everyone has to be different because here it is, and here it is, and here it is. If it was one and the same, it would be here it is. So if here it is, here it is, here it is, they have to all be different, even though they all arise bloop, all at the same time together.
And in that future fire, it's the anticipation of the fire. It's that projection.
Right, right, right. Look, my own mind's going, no, no, yes, no, yes, no, 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 yes, no. Because it does not seem like the everything arising all together is consistent with experience. Does it? And Buddha says, cut it against your own experience. Well, Buddha, my own experience is Incense not burning begins to burn, burns for a while. I should be able to find a moment when it goes from not burning to burning because I'm experiencing it, personally experiencing it. I'm cutting it against my experience. Then I would find that these teachings don't work, wouldn't I? So how do we have to cut it against our own experience further? Well, does everybody experience lighting incense like that? What does your mind say?
No.
My mind says, yes, they do. Any human that wants to light incense has to take a incense piece and something that will light it and put those two together. Every human has to do that. That confirms my experience.
But then sometimes the incense just doesn't burn.
Well, yeah, because, you know, sometimes it doesn't have in it what it needs to burn. Somebody made it wrong or it got wet or, right? My mind has an answer. But your mind's going to be tenacious. How's it going to be tenacious?
But if really then incense get burnt by fire, then it should be burning every single time and incense is lighted.
Exactly. And it should burn all the way down every single time. Sarani, have you ever had incense that only burns part way?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that happens. It drives me crazy. And how close do I have to get it to the fire before it lights?
Mm.
And what about the dog watching me do what I call lighting incense on fire? What are they perceiving? Right. But what if somebody says, yeah, I can't know what a dog perceives. But if the fire lighting the incense was happening in them from them, then that would mean the dog would have to experience it in the same way as me.
And the dog will
That
be able to.
means, right, that means the dog would, I don't know, I don't know, we would be able to know. We would know that the dog was experiencing it the same way. So the very fact that we say, I don't know what the dog's experiencing it, I think Nagarjuna would say proof, because otherwise you would know. Because the incense lighting would make you know if its identity and function was in it. Why was I going there? Because I'm trying to insist that my personal experience does not help me confirm Buddha's teachings are true, which is mistaken, right? Because it's one of the ways to show ourselves that Buddha's teachings are worth following. So to just apply it to my experience, burning fire is the triangle happening versus one piece, and one piece coming together. I need to really investigate my experiences that I believe are me contacting an other and having an interaction between us that are all happening independently of my own experience. And is there anything that can be real or true for me that would be outside of my experience? Could there be anything true or real for me that was happening outside of my experience? No, it's a stupid thing to say, right? Can you experience something you're not experiencing? No. So everything you've ever experienced, that's all made you up, right? It's part of what makes us up, isn't it? And can there exist anything outside of our own experience? Check your mind. My mind goes, of course. There's all kinds of things that can exist outside of my experience. Like outer space, like the medicine man in Peru and what he's doing right now. And like there's all kinds of things.
The world is round.
Yeah. But just to be thinking of those things as things I don't know, they're still coming from me. Like I can't conceive of anything that's outside of my experience. Like, so even in every moment of experience, isn't all that I've ever experienced somehow contained in that? Because it's all been a part of the ripening me since forever. I don't know, it's kind of scary. But why am I going there? We're wanting to use Nagarjuna. Now that we're familiar with him, we're wanting to use Nagarjuna to trigger this awareness of our own kachik so that we can catch it and go, oh, you are so mistaken, right? Because we know his clues now. We know where he's trying to take us. And before I was telling the group, don't jump to the punchline, work this out. And now that we're like getting more familiar, let's see if we can let ourselves jump to the punchline, but catch the way the part of us in between goes, no way. Our job is to catch the kachik. And that's how I use this text. It's not so much to fine tune what I'm calling my wisdom. It's to catch the part of me that goes, no. I refuse to accept the fact that everything that's going on in the world right now, let alone, my own country, is coming from my own seeds. It just horrifies me to admit that. And it's like, I don't want to go there. But I have to, you see, I have to for my wisdom to be complete. Otherwise, it stays up here. Oh, I understand. Everything's coming from my seeds, but not that. I'll work with that from seeds, but I'm not going to take responsibility for that because I can't possibly have been that awful. And it's like, check out your own mind, Sarani. You did that to the white flies just last year. But white flies, they're just white flies. Yeah, right. Do you see?
May I have a question?
Please.
My mind just goes to my history classes in school. And even though I haven't experienced those past times directly, it just crossed my mind that still it is then part of my seeds that I hear about the history of my country specifically, and that even things that have passed that I'm told of has to do with my behavior now.
Right. 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 One of the things I see in my feeds is that the powers that be are taking out all the ugly history of the United States from the museums and the textbooks, you know, and it's just stupid and crazy. But in a sense, it's like if the people that make up that country have shifted their karmas so much, then it would be true, right? Because history is not a thing that has taken place that's solidified. You know, so yes, it's horrible for that history of how we've been bad and good to be changed by somebody. But the fact that that can happen is coming from us as well. And we can do spiritual revisionism, right? We're taught to do that. Not to mean, oh, it never happened, but to revisit who we blamed for what and what the benefit was. I'm not making a case for change history at all. What I'm saying is it could happen, you know, and then an entire population of beings moving forward would know absolutely nothing about World War II ever having happened. And then did it happen for them?
No.
No.
You know, this
And it's also part of purification, right?
it's all
Yeah.
about your seeds.
All
It's
about
coming
seeds.
from our seeds. Because nowadays, when I was 20 or 22, there wasn't all these resources. Like what I did with this presentation, that would have taken a lot more work back then.
Yeah.
Fact that someone like me could do it, like the game has changed.
Yes.
If you want to fact check, and you have a group around you that's supportive and you have examples of people that are doing it, you might actually be able to fact check it. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
But so the resource, just because the resources are out there doesn't mean that the people have the seeds to want to do that fact checking.
Correct. Correct.
Yet
Correct.
all the facts I find are also a result of my seed. So whatever I perceive as facts,
Right.
my son would perceive different facts probably,
Exactly.
and would just tell me it's fake what my
That's
facts
right.
are. So it's like, okay,
We're living that right now.
yeah. It's insofar interesting that there's a similar thing going on here now that the Holocaust survivors die out slowly. But I was just thinking that this intense history classes that we had, for example, inflicted so many different things in the people hearing about it. So some felt shame, even though they haven't been part of it. Some felt like more compassion and tried to change behavior or be more mindful in acting with others. So it's interesting to see it as a part of our seeds, and some are purifying stuff and still have this kind of underlying motives, and others are hearing it, but it's not triggering these things, but different things that allow us to think about how to act and create future.
Right.
That was interesting. I never
Yeah.
thought about that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Nice.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So we are back on the Arya Nagarjuna investigator's horse. Thank you so much, Janet. This helped me out so much that I can dig back in for next week. Which we'll just start at chapter 11, shall we? Instead of figuring out where we left off a month ago, we'll pick up at 11 and go forward, shall we? Okay. So would you like to do our closing prayers, Janet, or would you prefer I do?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
You do them, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So bring to mind that person that you wanted to help. And with this class, we have created seeds that we can dedicate to help that person. By the goodness of what we have just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. We take a breath and dedicate those seeds to that person. And a breath to dedicate the seeds to all the people, our classmates, and all the ACI people and the people we love. And we take a breath and we dedicate seeds to the whole world.
Nice job, Janet. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Thank you,
problem.
Janet.
Yeah.
I
See you
really
later.
appreciate it. Okay, see you later.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Stop recording.